G'day Bomber fans, the 2023 season is now officially done for all 18 clubs, not just us, and very soon we have the trade and draft to look forward to. I got you guys to ask me some questions recently. Today I'm going to answer them. Here is a cheeky little trade and draft Q&A. Also stay tuned to the Absolutely Essendon channel, the guys over there. There may be a cheeky collab cooking. Alright, first question, what key forwards are on the market in 2024? We obviously need some key forward strength and there's nothing really available this year. There are some ready-made options next season though, but older. Tex Walker, Matt Taberner, Tim Membry, Jack Gunston, all a bit older, all free agents, none on our radar, I would say. We need someone who can last longer and pair with Peter Wright. Cam Zurhaar is available as an undersized option. We have gone for him in the past. I would say we will do the same in 2024. Todd Marshall is a free agent, Victorian Port Adelaide player. Aaron Norton and Jamara Ugle-Hagan are out of contract. So there are quite a few players with no contract and many more I would say that have an offer on the table or have more years on their contract but might want a move. This year is the key defender year. Next year is all about the key forward, so we should get excited for that. Luca Rocker asks if Essendon will either pick Connor O'Sullivan or Nick Watson in the draft, and if one of them, which one will have more of an impact? I doubt we're going to have access to Nick Watson. He's close to a top 5 pick, top 5 or 6. We have pick 8 in the draft, but that's going to be pick 9 with the McKay compensation and also some Gold Coast Academy players in the 10 as well. So our pick could even be pick 10 really. So I think we're more likely to be picking someone like Nate Caddy or Connor O'Sullivan. I would love Watson, but it won't happen for us unless we trade up to get him. As for O'Sullivan, he's a terrific swingman. He's a tall defender. He was the Allies' best and fairest winner in their champs winning campaign. Coaches really rate him, which is important. He's a versatile defender. He won't make an impact for a few seasons. He takes longer for players in his position to grow, but anyone from the top 10 or 11 could be a real player. There are some goodies in this draft. O'Sullivan is one of them. He would be a big help for our defense in a few years, but the players in the top 5 or 6 are better than the ones below by a decent chunk, I think. If you want to find out more about the draft, head over to my other channel, AFL 101. I do monthly draft power rankings. I am a pretty big draft nerd. Alright, 2 questions from the same person. What do we think about the Dylan Shiel and Jade Gresham trade, and should we trade pick 8 for someone handy like Bailey Smith? I'll start with the Shiel Gresham question. I think using Shiel as trade bait to offload salary is fair. He doesn't have long left at all in his career, and we aren't in the business of flags anytime soon, so why not trade him off to somewhere who could use some experience? As for Gresham, it's hard to know how well he will fit in our team, but it would be an improvement on Snelling and Guelphy, I would say, especially if we can somehow maneuver an extra first round pick out of it, which is a discussion around. And as for a first round pick 8, trading it for a ready-made player, I don't know. I don't really think there is anyone left on the market worth trading for that we aren't going for already. We are already changing our team so much this off-season. If anything, I would rather package those picks to rise up the draft and get a better top 5 selection in the national draft. I think we are building our list so much as it is, we don't need to compromise our early draft hand to get another ready-made player. Light of Being asks what we could learn from studying the recruitment process used by the 2 2023 grand final teams. You see their starting 22s from the grand final, or 23s. They were made up of mostly first-round picks and traded in players, which says to me that to win flags, you have to nail early picks. It's all well and good Dodoro finding these gems like Nick Martin out of nowhere, but if you don't nail first-round picks, you're set to fall behind, and we haven't been nailing them lately, which is probably why we're looking at Matt Rosa to take over. And of course, off-season, bringing in players, you look at what Collingwood did, even just last year, I think it's remarkable. They got Bobby Hill, a Norm Smith medalist for a future second rounder, the year after that player requested a trade to Essendon, so he missed out on him. They offloaded an All-Australian ruckman for another draft pick. They got Billy Frampton for a 3rd round. He was just depth, but he made an impact in the grand final, shutting down Harris Andrews. They brought in Tom Mitchell for their midfield, and Oleg Markov, he was delisted by Gold Coast, and the Pies saw the vision there. He's now a premiership player. So you look at what Gold Coast thought he wasn't necessary. Collingwood brought him in, and you see what happens. He's made an impact. They see the best of players struggling to fit in at other teams and make the most out of them. It's what we tried to do with Wiedemann but failed, or failed so far. It's not always just about finding a player that fits your needs. It's about finding a player that could improve what you already have. Collingwood do it pretty well over there, so nail your first round draft selections and don't necessarily go for stars at the trade period. Just go for players that you can see making you a stronger team on bigger games. Alright, do we have any father-son or academy players this year at the draft? Not really, to be honest. There are no father-son options, and we do have a next generation academy. It's how we got Anthony Mankara, who was eventually delisted. I would say there's only one that we are likely keeping an eye on this season, and if we picked him up, it would be through the rookie draft. His name is Mahmoud Tahar. He is a good ball-winning midfielder, not really on the radar at the national draft, I would say. He wasn't invited to the combine. He's at the state combine, which usually shows where you're going to fall in the draft. And if he was going to be selected, it would be very late into the national draft. So a bit like Mankara in that regard, he was picked up as a rookie. There are also some other NGA players like Ryan Eyre and Amin Name, but they won't get drafted, I would say. Dobby asks what our trade and draft approach is. For trades, it looks like we've chosen to fix issues we currently have with our list for the short term. Ben McKay in defense, trying to get Goldstein for our ruck, Jade Gresham to give us more class in and around the 50, all things we need a bit of polishing with. And then for the draft, our early picks usually have to be the best available option. But after that, I think we might see some key position players like we saw with Lewis Hayes last season, maybe down the other end of the ground this time round. We don't really have much key forward power, but it's hard to plan for a draft really, especially before the trade period. So much moves on the night. We don't even know our position yet, and it all depends on what we get in the trade period. We may be forced to draft a ruckman or a classy forward option if we miss out on trade targets. I'll make a draft preview later on, I reckon, closer to the date. What do I think Essendon's approach with McKay should be? Make sure North get round one compensation or try to avoid this and hope a deal can be done for a later pick if North match the offer. Really, with free agency, you don't want to go to a trade. Right now, we have the upper hand because McKay wants to come to us. We have the option of getting him, and North will receive pick 3 via compensation. It means we have to pay an extra 50 to 100k more, but if we don't meet the requirements for band 1 compensation, the pick 3, then we have to work out a trade because North they're gonna match that. North will have the upper hand. McKay will always choose to re-sign instead of go to the draft if we can't work out a trade. So what we want to do is give them that compensation. We don't have the draft hand to give them anything more valuable than the pick 3 they would get for compensation anyway. So North want pick 3 or they match the offer and force a trade. I think we do that and get McKay from free agency. We are going to be worse off missing out on him rather than giving up a bit more out of our salary cap, I think, at least. Let me know what you think down below though. Who do I think will have the best trade period this year? Which team and what player? I'm guessing that is what player they will get, or players. Port have had quite a few trade requests already. Radagalia, BZT, Jordan Sweet. It could be hard for them to get them all done with the draft hand they currently have. Sydney as well. They look like getting Brodie Grundy. They had James Jordan nominate them for a move. We are set to be active, but all the news is around those two clubs, I think, at the moment. Unless we do land Gresham, Goldstein, and McKay, that would be a pretty big trade period. As for the single player, I like James Jordan as a get. I think Sydney get a good player there who didn't get many opportunities at Melbourne. He's very young still, good on a wing. That's a good player. And finally, Mark Hopper asks a very good question. If we miss out on Goldstein, where do we look to bolster our ruck stocks? It's tough because they mention a few different options. Draft for a long-term or an established player. I think we need an older player. Our long-term option is Nick Bryan right now. Another young ruck is just going to complicate the way our list dynamic feels with 3 rucks under 25 years old. We need someone experienced to help ease the load off the young backs of Draper and Bryan. Goldstein would be perfect for a year or two, but if he goes to Collingwood, it's tricky because, well, there's Grundy, Sweet, and Flynn who have already shown interest in joining other clubs. Ivan Soldo is still on the market, Braden Pruce, but I really think if we miss out on Goldstein, it's a big loss. He could really help develop our younger rucks. That's the player we want. But that is that. Thank you everyone for your questions. I love good Q&A. If you have any more down in the comments, feel free to ask them. I will try and answer as many as I can. But that's all. Get keen for heaps of trade content coming up, heaps of draft too. Stay tuned. Cheers for watching, Bomber fans.